It's a job, and you set out to do a job, and you do the job. You know, live free or die, or die trying.
What do you guys think of the drummers, huh?
My name is Michael Moresco. I was born and raised in the mid-Hudson Valley of upstate New York, but I actually spent the last 20 years out in the islands of Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, but I've given up my life there to come back here and fight for liberty. We're beginning a walk, a 280-mile walk for freedom across the heartland. We're giving away U.S. constitutions.
We thought about the idea of walking from any number of cities, but we settled upon Green Bay because there was a Green Bay Packers opener game. So that's what we took advantage of. Since there were fans streaming in during the game, we were able to get in touch with them, pass out flyers describing our efforts.
Walk? Bring us Spring Eagles.
No, we don't need you to walk.
That'll be nice when we're walking down the road. So hope we draw a lot of attention, talk to a lot of people, have some fun.
Through emails, found out about the walk. And was like, you know, I have to do this. I care about my country and just concerned about the way and the direction it's going.
A constitutional republic has a lot more responsibility. Each individual, you know, they have to be interactive in government. They can't just like sit still and, you know, and hopefully things will change. You know, you got to be proactive.
Constitutions for your children?
Yeah.
You talk to 100 people. Maybe half of them will take your stuff, or maybe 3/4 of them will take it. Maybe 1/4 of them will throw that away. They're constitutions.
Oh, you know what? They're kids.
But it doesn't matter. Even if you talk to 100 people, even if one is somebody like us guys, then that snowballs. When you get of age, please vote, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
People were they're worried about the game.
Don't worry, yeah, it's tough.
My name is Nick Romaglia. I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I got here by Greyhound bus. Just walked 4 miles from the Greyhound station. So that started already.
The reasoning behind the walk, of course, is that it shows that there are a dedicated group who support the Constitution, that we're willing to go out of our way from our busy lives, from our jobs, family, from our lifestyles to do this.
I was willing to, put my life on hold. It wasn't all about making the almighty buck.
We're out here to spread the message of liberty in the U.S. Constitution, the principles of the Founding Fathers.
The other aspect is the town hall meetings, where we're calling upon citizens to come together and talk about the Constitution and talk about freedom and talk about what's going on in this country.
We're going to hold our elected officials accountable.
Okay.
We feel that they think they're above the law, and we've had enough of it.
I am in your court because that's what I want. I want Americans involved.
It's not something talked about. I think when people think you're talking about the Constitution, they say, oh, you're talking about politics. We don't want to hear that. But the Constitution, I think, is above politics. It's something that's not right or left. It's something that gives people, a voice.
My name is Tony Belanti, and I'm here as support for the walkers. I'm not a walker. From Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
We have a support truck.
Okay.
So the support truck will take you back.
Looks very good. Can't wait to drive around in it.
After months and months of planning, we're about to take our first steps. So I'm really excited and anxious to get going.
Yeah, baby. Freedom.
Woo! That's where it's at.
Liberty!
You don't see it every day. A group of people carrying the American flags, walking down the streets, walking 280 miles. No, you don't.
Our guest is Representative Ron Paul, a Republican of Texas. He formed a presidential exploratory committee on February 19th. Are you running for president?
Yes, I am. I will file the papers today to become an official candidate.
Little less than 1 year from today, you will go into the voting booth and you will select the next president of the United States of America.
I think elections are about the future. But how do you determine what will happen in the future? Well, you have to look to the record. You have to look to what we say in campaigns.
Egotism,
and what we have done during our
narcissism. Islamofascism is real.
Their goal is to unite the world under a single jihadist caliphate.
Use fear and falsehood.
My view is we had a double Guantanamo.
What do you talk about when you have nothing to say?
This is insane.
Some of these people frighten me. They frighten me.
President Bush has talked about our staying in Iraq for 50 years.
Maybe 100.
The danger from Iran is grave.
Well, I'm not concerned about the voters.
It'll be a really nice fruitcake.
But I can't be president unless you choose me to be, and I hope you will.
Deficit financing, big government, more taxes, more bureaucracy, more regulations, more policing the world.
What are you guys talking about, you know?
So many people say, oh, Ron Paul, he's crazy. That guy's crazy. And it's because they don't understand. And the reason that they don't understand is because they're getting all their news from the TV.
I've been called everything. I've been called crazy. I've been called, when I got in a fight with the neocon guy, he said I'm a nut job. He said Ron Paul's a nut job. You know, I mean, Ron Paul has forgotten more about economics than this guy knows. I mean, you know, Ron Paul has forgotten more about the Constitution than this guy knows.
If what's presented to them as right is absolutely wrong, how do you know any better? Do you know what I mean? Everybody's too busy paying the bills, trying to put food on the table and support their families to be as big a political nut as I am, or some of you are, you know, to keep up with it. You're just regular working people. Listen to talk radio some, maybe watch the news. If that's your worldview, if that's your perspective, how do you know any better?
There is no news anymore. As you know, news is gone in television. It's entertainment. It's all entertainment.
The media are almost incapable of reporting and even understanding the Constitution and the way that the Constitution is supposed to be respected.
We had to become our own media. That was a big part. I mean, the internet was a major driving force in spreading the word.
What was so wonderful about the Ron Paul campaign is the new free press was utilized, the internet. And that was wonderful because that's the next generation. And even though there's a lot of things out on the internet that aren't true, the truth is there. You just have to dig for it. And that's what's exciting about the internet as opposed to traditional media.
My name is Michael Nystrom. We are in my home here in Arlington, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston. And I created and run a site called The Daily Paul.
When we were trying to keep up with the Ron Paul campaign, the way we did it is we logged on to Daily Paul. And we kind of were addicts, you know, we didn't just log on once a day, we logged on 3 or 4 times a day because things were changing so fast.
In mid-January, after hearing Dr. Paul talk about what he wanted to do, how he was going to run, and the issues that he was going to run on, it was that weekend that I set up the Daily Paul.
The Daily Paul was a news site that was a real hub for people. And there was, you know, the news came from everywhere and ended up there.
Going back to take a look at world headquarters of the Daily Paul. Initially, my duties were to put content up on the site because there weren't that many people in the early days. Here it is. Probably not what people imagine, but...
It's funny, you know, you'll hear Limbaugh and all these guys talk about, well, some blogger wrote. Well, some blogger, who are you? I know you make $400 million a year, but what are your political credentials that your opinion is more important than some blogger?
This is just right off the kitchen. I like to say that I work from the kitchen table. This is the power of the internet, that a guy in his kitchen can have this kind of an impact.
My name is Larry Lepard, and I've spent my entire life in the financial world in investment management. Those of us who were on the Daily Paul in the early days when the momentum was building, you know, it was really infectious being involved in this whole thing. I mean, every day there was new news. Every day there was a new initiative. Every day somebody new was stepping up.
When Dr. Paul announced that he was going to represent freedom in this presidential election cycle, we knew it hadn't been done effectively for a very long time, and certainly not by anyone that had any credibility or a background or a track record that advocated freedom the way he does.
I got a call from Tom Lazzardo, who was Ron's congressional office manager, on a Saturday afternoon. And Tom asked me, he said, "Hey Larry, you know, I see you've been giving money for years. Tell me why." I explained. He said, "Dr. Paul's considering running for president. If he did, would you consider giving him serious financial support? I mean, really putting some money behind it." And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, I believe in everything Dr. Paul stands for. The odds are pretty good he's not going to win the presidency." And he said, "We know that." And I said, "You know, and I don't want to throw my money away." And he said, "We understand that."
As I recall, we were the first ones to announce it. And we got it on the radio, and that kind of went viral. People started coming to us, and how do you know, what do you know, what's going on, and so on. There was already from the beginning a great deal of enthusiasm in selected pockets.
If he can get in the debates, and if he can make a statement, and if he can really clearly enunciate his views, I think it's a story that deserves to be heard, and I think it's a story that deserves to be told.
And I was the one the most hesitant to get involved because time isn't right. Young people haven't heard about this. I'm not the right guy. We need more education because I believe that ideas move countries, individuals don't unless they're in the right place at the right time.
The big impact was when Ron Paul started to appear in the debates. There were 11 guys on the stage and 10 of them were saying the same thing, and Ron Paul was standing out.
We must win in Iraq.
We're going to have to engage in the Middle East. This is a global effort we're going to have to lead.
We will do whatever is necessary.
The Iranians could grab the Shia South.
We have a new strategy.
Very confrontational and very aggressive.
There will be chaos
that will spread to the region and to the rest of the world.
They ultimately want to bring down the United States of America.
Congressman Paul, you voted against the war. Why are all your fellow Republicans up here wrong?
Ron Paul is not the snappiest speaker. He's not the soundbite guy. He can't just say something real quick.
I believe that when we overdo our military aggressiveness, what it does, it actually weakens our national defense. I mean, we stood up to the Soviets. They had 40,000 nuclear weapons. Now we're fretting day in and day night about third world countries that have no army, navy, or air force, and we're getting ready to go to war.
The things that he's talking about don't have soundbite answers. You have to explore things a little deeper to understand what he's talking about. So he's trying to give you some backstory when he's giving you his answer.
His style had rough edges, wasn't as polished. I knew a lot about that because I helped prepare a candidate, Herbert Walker Bush, for the debates. I was a shill, so we would debate ad nauseum. So every line, every question was anticipated, and I could tell that what Ron Paul was saying was not for purposes of winning an election. They were gut reactions, truthful reactions to the issues.
I was just absolutely shocked that I was listening to a man who was speaking the truth about economics, speaking the truth about foreign policy, and I just said to myself, you know, who is this guy? Where's he been? And what is he doing up on stage with all of these other Republican candidates? Because he's the only one who sounds like a Republican to me.
At the core, the justification for his positions, the reason that he took the positions that he did was based on individual freedom.
A national tamper-proof ID card.
Yeah, I think that's critical. They have to have a document.
A national special card.
Absolutely. A tamper-proof card, a database.
Name, date, birth date, biographic information.
Dr. Paul.
I am absolutely opposed to a national ID card. This is a total contradiction of what a free society is all about. The purpose of government is to protect the secrecy and the privacy of all individuals, not the secrecy of government. We don't need a national ID card.
Ron Paul is completely uninterested in telling other people what to do or being told what to do. And there are very few people like that in politics anywhere, ever. Because politics is, of course, about amassing the power in order to tell other people what to do. And Ron Paul rejects that.
I just started reading and reading and reading decades of what this man has been saying over his 30 years, or 20 out of the past 30 years in Congress.
Out of 535 congressmen, senators and U.S. congressmen, there's one last man standing. And how many did it take? It took one man to sit there and say, hey, you know, It's broke.
I support federal funding.
That's a yes. Dr. Paul, yes or no on federal funding?
Programs like this are not authorized under the Constitution. The trouble with this...
He would take even issues that most people would consider minor, but vote on principle, even if it meant he was the only one voting against or for, whatever it was, usually against.
And I began to realize that this man is no joke. He is America's last true statesman, and he has actually been saying the same thing for the past 30 years about what our federal government needs to do to serve the people. That is, namely, follow the Constitution.
Would you work to phase out the IRS?
Immediately.
That's what they call a softball.
And you can only do that if you change our ideas about what the role of government ought to be.
He'd talk about central banking, which is off the table. I mean, it's not even an issue. No politician raises it. No presidential election has ever turned on it. It's just been quietly removed from the political conversation. He brings it back.
We live way beyond our means with a foreign policy we can't afford and an entitlement system that we have encouraged. We print money for it, the value of the money goes down, and poor people pay higher prices. That is a tax.
So I figured, oh, people just don't want him on the scene because he's against the war. After researching it a little more, I realized that's not it. It's because he's against the Federal Reserve. That's the huge money that's keeping him out of the playing field.
Suddenly, a lot of people who love the country and haven't voted precisely because they feel like it would be an insult to the great history of this country to vote for one or the other criminal are so excited at the prospect that, wait a minute, maybe the country can be saved after all.
I think there is a market for, an appetite for his ideas. And his ideas are, you know, pretty straightforward. If you sort of allow people to do what they want, they're going to make a ton of mistakes. They'll do more things right than wrong. But in either case, you don't really have a right to intervene.
You know, traditionally in politics, and I was told early on when I first got in politics, you know, you develop your logo and you stay uniformed and everybody does this and you put this on every piece of literature in your TV, your bumper stickers, everything else. And I kept remarking the characteristic of our campaign was there was no characteristic. You know, it was miscellaneous, spontaneous, homemade, and all shapes and sizes and colors. And it turned out that it was not uniform, and everybody knew it, but it didn't seem to hurt us.
Nobody that paid any attention at all could have possibly missed the Revolution love signs, and they were everywhere.
The Revolution logo, I don't know, I ripped it off of somebody off the internet. I happened to see something like that where they did the backwards love. And all we did was put Ron Paul on top of the logo and it exploded.
I don't know, maybe the implications are that a revolution means, you know, you bring out the guillotine and the peasants storm the castle with pitchforks and torches.
The word revolution has a certain strength to it. Combining it with the word love obviously gives it a completely different spin.
We started the Ron Paul Revolution sign production.
Okay, here we go.
We would do this every Friday. We have at least 1 to 3 stations across, just in Arizona, the Valley of the Sun here. We would have people on a Friday making 200-300 signs.
So that's another batch of another 42 more signs for tonight.
We started shipping them to friends all over the country.
I needed some banners, and I saw one of these things that said Ron Paul Revolution. Now that's pretty cool. And then I got looking on the internet and I found out who was making them, and I just wrote him a letter. I said, you know, I'm Linda Honeycutt. I would really like to have some of your banners. And he called back. He said, what's your address? So I gave him my address. And he hung up. And about 4 days later, here we get this huge box.
In South Carolina, we wanted to find who's going there, who's going to be there.
The stage is set and the candidates are ready for tonight's Republican presidential debate.
Sent those to Granny Warriors, and a lot of the activists that were there in support of Dr. Paul, they held them up, and the cameras got their first view of them, and that's when it kicked. It went cross country.
Well, he is one of the 10 presidential candidates to face off in tonight's debate right here on Fox. But I got to tell you, I have never seen so many viewer emails urging us to get a candidate on our air as I have with this particular gentleman. How are you going to stand out tonight?
Well, I guess just telling the truth like I did last time, and we did very well.
In the debate, when you get 1 minute and 30 seconds, maybe for a rebuttal, and it might take you a sentence or two to really collect your thoughts. It's a bit challenging. So sometimes after I looked at it, I said, well, I did better than I thought I was going to be able to do.
It is the constitutional position. It is the advice of the founders to follow a non-interventionist foreign policy. Stay out of entangling alliances. Be friends with countries. Negotiate and talk with them and trade with them.
They looked at that Republican stage that night and they're like, what is this guy saying? We've never heard anything like this. And what's better, it makes a lot of sense.
So there's a lot of merit to the advice of the founders and following the Constitution. And my argument is that we shouldn't go to war so carelessly. When we do, the wars don't end.
He was talking more about the things that really matter, not the war in Iraq, but should we be the policeman of the world? Should we be at war anywhere, and why, and when, and under what circumstances?
Congressman, you don't think that changed with the 9/11 attack, sir?
What changed?
The non-interventionist policies.
No, non-intervention was a major contributing factor. Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years.
You know, if we misbehave around the world, you know, there are going to be people in the world who don't like the United States, period, end of story. I think that's just common sense. I think most kids know that at the kindergarten level.
It's very easy to be Rudy Giuliani and say, we got to get the terrorists, or, you know, yeah, people will vote for you for that. It's very hard to get them to vote for somebody who actually makes them think or says, wait a minute, these slogans are fit for a 7-year-old.
Right now, we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
And I thought, what fun. How are they going to answer that? And it must have been embarrassing for the other candidates to have to sit there and hear this deep discussion and to know in their hearts the guy's absolutely right. But
are you suggesting we invited the 9/11 attack, sir?
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. They have already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
Ron Paul had the courage and integrity to call out the established fantasy that a lot of the neocon and establishment politicians have, which is that, you know, the United States, anything the United States does around the world is morally good because we, quote unquote, have the moral high ground.
Why are we being attacked? Well, you're not allowed to ask that question. We're being attacked because we're such wonderful people. Well, why else?
That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement of someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11.
When Rudy Giuliani, you know, that genius who has read so much about American foreign policy, who's sought out as a consultant all over the world for his knowledge of the world, when Rudy Giuliani asked him about that and said, you know, I'd like you to take that back, Congressman.
And I would ask the congressman to withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
And Dr. Paul wouldn't back down. Everyone in the audience wanted him to pander and say, oh yeah, no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it this way. And he took that opportunity to educate the people.
Paul explained the concept of blowback to an audience, most of whom probably did not want to hear that, or more importantly, have never heard that.
Congressman?
I believe very sincerely that the CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists.
And Paul pointed out that the primary cause of the threat of terrorism in the United States comes almost exclusively, not even sort of and piecemeal, but almost exclusively, because of our foreign intervention over there.
And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
He spoke to much deeper strategic principles that need to be debated.
Every single Republican on that stage wanted to get in their 2 cents about what Dr. Paul was talking about.
Can I have 30 seconds, please?
No, wait a second. We'll all get 30 seconds.
They are coming.
We all want 30 seconds to talk about this.
During the Republican primary, after each debate, Fox News would do this, the phone texting. Sean Hannity, text us right now, whatever the digits were for your candidate, In each Fox News poll, this is a poll conducted by Fox News, Ron Paul overwhelmingly won.
Here's a look at the early results of our text message poll. In first place, Ron Paul, surprisingly.
What does it say that he's doing so well in our text messaging among those watching Fox News?
To be honest, says absolutely nothing.
Maybe he's a little bit better organized and having his organizers do the necessary dialing.
Well, that's just those crazy Ron Paul people texting over and over. Now, we all know you text one time. Thank you for your vote, Fox News, appreciate, watch Fox News. You text again, sorry, you can only vote one time.
On the one hand, you're taking it seriously enough to put it on, and then on the other hand, you're saying, no, don't pay attention to the person who's in first place.
Look, text polls are text polls. It's like internet polls.
It's not even phone calls.
He did not win that debate.
He did not win it.
Why would he try to discredit their own poll? Doesn't make any sense.
In second place, Governor, you're in second place with 27%. Third place...
If Romney had won, you would have seen ticker tape parade stuff happen in the studio. They would have brought out, horses and Clydesdales and chariots.
Would have, talked for about 10 minutes about how great Romney is, and it makes sense that Romney won. Sean Hannity, more than anybody else on Fox, just without any subtlety, rips down anything that he disagrees with and doesn't even provide an excuse or an explanation.
If we feel strongly about it, why don't we declare...
If a woman is being raped next door, we just do nothing there either?
This is just going to shake the establishment. They do not want this guy running for president.
I want to be president of the country, not president of the Republican Party.
You got to get the nomination first.
Yeah, but...
This is an unusual figure, a liberty-minded, anti-war person. That this is not only not a contradiction in terms, it's the only sensible political philosophy there is.
I think Ron Paul basically, for me, it's done.
That was a fabulous boost for Ron Paul's campaign. I think that's when a lot of people woke up.
There's no question that Ron Paul struck a chord and it resonated with many people.
The Ron Paul moment, and that's exactly what that was.
And it was after that moment, after May, that traffic all over online really started to explode.
When Giuliani gave us a boost, then I realized that there's a lot of support out there.
Paul is truth! Paul is truth! Paul is truth!
What happened to your party?
They've lost their way.
It was the lead story in the next 24-hour news cycle, and of course I think that what they all figured was, well, that'll be the end of Ron's campaign.
Ron Paul is a no one.
Ron Paul really has no business being on stage.
They have no idea what's going on. Why stomp out the grassroots candidate and only reward those with $100 million that get money from the special interest?
Republican presidential candidate Rudy Giuliani is being assigned some summer reading.
If there was a Guinness Book of Political Showmanship, Congressman Ron Paul would be in it today.
I'm giving Mr. Giuliani a reading assignment. We have Mr. Giuliani studying tonight. He's home reading all those books. And he's going to come back and he's going to apologize to me. And he's going to say, I'm sorry, Ron, I just didn't know. This is what I expect him to read before the next debate.
The titles include Dying to Win, which looks at the motives of suicide bombers, Blowback, which examines U.S. foreign policy.
If policy is detrimental and has blowback, then we should change it.
All of a sudden, it was all the buzzword everywhere, blowback, blowback.
Ron Paul was able to have a press conference afterwards showing that, indeed, the government reports themselves have been talking about the same things he had.
Paul brought along Michael Scheuer, the former head of the CIA's Osama bin Laden unit.
Our leaders tell us that the Muslims hate freedom and hate liberty and hate women in the workplace, and that's got nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with what we do in the Islamic world.
Jeremy in California, Giuliani's response to Paul and the subsequent applause by the audience just goes to prove how ignorant and arrogant we are here. That's a book list all Americans would be well served to read.
I knew at that point something was going to happen, and I didn't know what, and I didn't know how far it would go, but something was, going to be special with this campaign.
This was the first election where you had somebody like Paul, where you could actually see a reflection of grassroots support through the internet. The closest thing I can think of is Howard Dean in 2004, but that pales in comparison to what happened to Paul, especially with young people.
The community of websites that was created by the Ron Paul movement is really quite phenomenal. It's like its own world.
The Ron Paul forums and the Daily Paul became to be the two prominent user communities for the Ron Paul movement.
Ron Paul Forums was just a simple forum software that got put up, right place, right time, right connections, whatever, and that went through the roof.
That first week, I mean, there was hundreds of people registered, and we got lots of posts, and it was like, wow, this thing is really taken off, just on the first week, and then the second week, it just more and more, and it just kept growing.
Just having one central, well-maintained place where everybody could talk to each other, plan, because that's what freedom-minded individuals need, is a place to meet other people with the same beliefs.
I look at it as somewhat of a crucible, or it's a place where ideas get thrown in and there's lots of fire and sparks, and then something comes of it.
Me and Brian, we met at a meetup group, and we talked about ways that we could harness the internet.
What are meetup groups, and what role do they play in the revolution? Meetup is a website where people with like interests can form social organizations, groups, and use the internet as a basic tool for the structure of their organization, where they're going to go, where they're going to meet, and it's basically their communication hub.
We had an elderly couple that was retired. We had, young people that, were barely out of school. It was very exciting to see them all sitting down at the same table and talking about the same issues.
Here in Central North Carolina, we started a meetup group, the Triangle Meetup. We grew to, from very few to 20-some members at the first meetup to over 400.
And that was great. We were, explosive growth for a long time. The number of people in meetup groups, I know McCain, he's got like 5 people. Blew away every other candidate by a mile.
4,000, 5,000, something like that, groups around the world. And not just in America, I mean around the world. They were in Belgium and Australia, and just, they were everywhere.
The reason this got so large so fast is because people did exactly what they wanted to express themselves to their peers, the people that mattered on their street corner in their neighborhood.
My name is Mystique Rain Larkin.
My daughter, Mystique, is 8 years old. The first big event we went to was Ozfest here in Mansfield, Massachusetts. And she helped me distribute, along with some other Ron Paul supporters, about 4,000 pieces of literature that day. It's a young crowd. They're going to be receptive to the message. We can really make this work for us.
They're all heavy metal dudes. And here I am in my collared shirt. By the end of the day, they were calling me Dad. I look like the average mainstream American dad.
I had some people through Ron Paul forums design something for me that would be good for that specific crowd. It was very colorful, stated some of his stances on different issues, and we just went in and started talking to people and handing out literature.
I literally had butterflies in my stomach before I went there. It's like, oh my God, I got to go out and talk to people about, Ron Paul's message. I quickly realized that getting out talking to people, it's fun.
I think the people now have understood how much power they as individuals really do have, and where the battle really is, mind to mind. Individual to individual, one-on-one. Me putting a sign out on the freeway and 100,000 people see it, know what I think. I vote every time I put a sign up.
The sign bombing culture that developed as a means of spreading awareness, and was something that I did, climbing up on overpasses, putting up signs with zip ties.
These are all things that the grassroots thought of because their man wasn't getting the attention. So they basically had creative tantrums.
Young people it's just, they're natural born activists. It's in their blood. They're rebellious. They rebel against their parents and their teachers, and so it's in them, not to be fearful and to stand up.
Don't just play by the rules. Think of ways to do unique things that break through.
It's not just what kind of places, it's like, can you attach it? If you can attach it, it went up.
Just walk down the street inconspicuously with the signs, then you get somewhere, put up a sign, just keep on walking.
And all these young people that had never even thought, go, you got a permit to put that sign up? Never even crossed their mind. Didn't even blaze over their cortex, brush it at all, that they were going to seek some kind of permission from the man to challenge the man. Yeah, looks like that little Spartan thing going on.
Yeah, looks just like him, man. Looks just like him.
Campaigns are very leery about sort of these volunteers. That is, they want people to come in and volunteer for the campaign. And they want you to do exactly what you're told. Come in and stuff envelopes or do this. What they don't want is anybody who will have any kind of loose connection with the campaign, but also some initiative who's sort of freelancing, you know, because those people can end up violating the law because they're not consulting the lawyers, and that gets the campaign in trouble. And so we've seen this sort of death of this type of spontaneous campaigning, and we've seen the centralization of campaigns. Campaigns become more and more centralized, especially presidential campaigns.
The campaign did not endorse this. They didn't know why they were sending the signs. It's not their fault that we were going to break the law or whatever. I don't know. You know, a lot of these signs are on private property, so that's okay.
Many people got very passionate and gave their time or their money or just rose in a way above those regulations you were talking about and said, we're not going to do things the normal way.
That I thought was emblematic of the campaign. It was like, you know what, screw the mainstream media, screw traditional means of advertising. This is a grassroots movement, and we're going to take it upon ourselves to get our message out any way we can.
I would make signs, I'll put up signs, spread the message everywhere, spread it.
And I think that's why the Ron Paul campaign was successful and why people have tried to imitate it haven't done very well, because they've tried to plan it, and you can't plan it. You have to inspire people and let them do what they do best.
I'm Linda Honeycutt. I'm from right here in Leicester, North Carolina, and I'm one of the Granny Warriors. My husband went to work one morning and he come back and I'd already started painting on it, and he said, "Oh my God, oh, babe." Then he helped me.
This used to be a nice looking motorhome, and look what she did to it now.
What better way of yelling out at the world? Don't you watch what's on the side of trucks? Oh yeah. Well, what's wrong with putting your own message up?
Everywhere you go, everybody knows who Ron Paul is with her. She goes all over the United States.
The Granny Warriors, they rock. And they have a monkey.
It would take us 3 hours to gas up in a gas station. Not because we're just slow pumpers, it's because people come up and talk and talk and talk and talk. You know, they see that thing and they run out and they see the monkey hanging out of it. Oh, it's a monkey. And then, oh, who's Ron Paul?
I don't even have a motorhome no more. Ron Paul's got my motorhome. Sad.
There was nowhere we went that people weren't gathered around.
Just about walked, what, about 6 miles already today. Got a couple blisters. Not me, my friends do.
I've done a lot of traveling in my life. I've been in the Midwest before, but I've never been that intimate with the Midwest.
Suwannee County. This will be our second county of the trip.
I've never been to Wisconsin. This is the furthest west I've ever been in my life.
Just keep it going. A little tired right now, but we'll get a rest. We'll be fine.
I'm completely energized.
Yeah, he only walked.
That's right, I only walked a couple miles.
Walking 280
miles from Green Bay to Minneapolis.
Whoa, awesome.
There's the Constitution, the Bill of Rights.
The reception has been really good in all the towns that we've gone through.
I saw you downtown with the flags. I was like, oh, I wonder what they're doing.
Just meeting people on the streets, or, you know, as we walk along, people wave and honk at us, you know, because, you know, we're carrying the American flag.
Going to talk to the community, try to bring them together for the town hall meeting.
And we tell them, you know, we're walking for freedom, we're passing out constitutions.
And we're talking to folks about their concerns. You know, it's our government. And so people that complain about the government, a lot of them don't realize that they were just complaining about ourselves.
Yeah, let's walk into town and let's pass in some flyers and spread the revolution. Let's go.
These towns are really small. I mean, 800 people, 1,500 people, 1,000 people.
We get lost so much out here because we're really unfamiliar.
Yesterday was pretty interesting. We got left behind by the RVs. We had to walk like 3 miles to get to the presentation. Another thing that happened is I got stung by a bee in the foot yesterday, or today. and it was a Hornet, and so it's really been conflicting with my walking. So, but we're just gonna press on, push on. Hopefully we don't get left behind again. Dude, you should bust a move, man. Huh? Should bust a trick. Heck yeah.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much, Spencer. You guys are doing the right thing. Thank you.
Check it out. Front page news. Here we are, all of us. There's Mike, there's Cody, there's me, and then there's the naked cowboy there, Mr. Brett himself.
Yep. Good news, boys.
What's going on?
The mayor of Wausau will be at our meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we pulled into Wausau, Wisconsin. It's a pleasant town. It's probably one of the biggest ones, a population of about 38,000.
We're at the VFW hall here, and they were kind enough to put the sign up for us. I walked in to talk to them. They're looking forward to the gig tonight. We've had two walkers join us today, Grant McCullum and Alyssa Klingenberg. So we're really excited about that. It'd be nice to have a ladies' touch around. Maybe it'll keep some of these boys in line. Maybe not.
We've been putting on the presentation for the last, I'd say about 5 days.
Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm Jim Tipple, the mayor of the city of Wausau, and I was invited to take part of the program tonight, and that's really why I'm here, and to learn more about the movement and get more awareness of what's really going on in our country.
We'll be talking about what's gone wrong with our political system in America.
People in this country no longer know what the Constitution says and what those principles are, and we need to educate them.
For the most sense, there's a gut feeling that something is wrong with the country, and people are just looking for that spark to ignite something that will truly change it.
We need to put the fear of the people back into the government. It's un-American for the people to fear the government. And it is American for the government to fear the people. That's the heart of America right there.
We watched a bunch of distant people, a bunch of strangers turn into a community at the end of that meeting. The way we're going to bring this country back is if we become communities again. When we leave these towns and we move on to the next one, we hope that we left the town in a better place.
We started out as supporting Ron Paul for president, and we've moved way beyond that now. Now we are seriously trying to wake this country up and get us back to our roots and preserve the good United States of America.
I wrote about one of the first times people tried to mess with the Ron Paul movement. It was in Iowa, when there was a candidates forum being put on by the Iowa Christian Alliance and the Iowans for Tax Reform. They didn't want to let Ron Paul participate. They let Tommy Thompson participate. They invited, at the last minute, they invited Jim Gilmore, who is not Pink Floyd's guitarist, by the way. No one even knows who Jim Gilmore is.
Ron Paul's been long said to be the taxpayer's best friend. I don't think he's ever voted to increase taxes once, because he doesn't think there should be any, no income tax in particular.
It would be like not inviting Batman to your convention against the Riddler. How could you not invite Ron Paul to this?
When Ron Paul was excluded, we were like, well, what do we want to do? And we started talking, and we were like, well, let's hold a rally outside, and everybody was talking about just going up there and protesting.
So the Ron Paul people decided they were going to have their own event in the next room.
A lot of times campaigns are centered around the individual, and the individual starts it and rallies the troops. But the truth is, the people who are interested in sound government, limited government, the Constitution, are really the organizers.
That was one of the big first rallies with like 1,000 people.
They ended up getting twice as many people at their event, which was much more interesting. There was no propaganda in it. It was all real information.
We now live in an age, now for a good many years, way too many years, that the federal government owns all our income and we're permitted to keep a certain percentage. That is the terrible notion of the personal income tax, which we should get rid of.
And here's Ron Paul, by the way. He wants to abolish the IRS and replace it with nothing. Well, yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't want to have him at your candidates forum.
I've been involved in startups before. My background is starting a hospital software company, so you understand the power of organization. But what I hadn't really experienced in my life was the power of spontaneous order, where people see a shared vision. They come from all different political philosophies, all different life experiences, but there's a shared vision of what it means to be Americans and have a country that follows the rules. And things just started coming together.
We did a poll of Iowa voters, as you saw, and we asked the voters there for questions. We got more questions on Iraq and the war than any other single subject. Here was one of them.
My question is, if you were president, what would be your strategy for ending the war in Iraq?
Congressman Paul, what would it be?
Just come home. We just marched in. We can just come home.
Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul!
What's going on here? We're having a rally for the debate in Des Moines, and we're just hanging out in the parking lot across the street from the beautiful Drake Auditorium, chanting Ron Paul. Let them know we're here.
Ron Paul! Ron Paul! Ron Paul!
The photos that ABC News chose to put on their website showed big throngs of supporters.
They had this one awesome picture of all these Mitt Romney supporters, and then they had another picture of this one lonely Ron Paul supporter. He just looked really hapless.
Now, you would have had to strain to find a single solitary individual holding a Ron Paul sign, but they found it.
Ron Paul owned that day. I don't care what picture you look at, you're going to see a Ron Paul sign or a shirt. And the mainstream news acted like, oh, it's a bunch of little nuts out here, just a few little people.
All right. Ron Paul's a country doctor, a wise and peaceful man. He heard his Uncle Sam was sick and he came up with a plan. No waging war will not secure our home security. Put Ron Paul in the White House to fight for you and me. Cause there's no debate, it's getting late for America the free. Put Ron Paul in the White House to fight for liberty.
As you can see, Mitt Romney's got buses coming in from the four corners of Iowa. They gave all their voters yellow shirts.
We were parked right at the entrance. We watched every one of Mitt Romney's buses pull up, and they'd have their little delegation out there to round these people up. They didn't let them talk to anybody. I mean, you couldn't even talk to them.
Restore our Constitution, Ron Paul.
Just like sheep, herd them in there, and I guess they got them to vote, and then they would do whatever they wanted.
And here's Sam Brownback campaign. Looks like it's a carnival. Get the kids in so you get the parents in. One big carnival ride.
We haven't had the richest campaign, but we have had the hardest working, most enthusiastic, dedicated group of people who know and understand it's worth the effort.
My whole life for 6, 7, 8 months was Ron Paul radio, get Ron Paul elected. That's the only reason why I was alive.
What's up? This is DJ Lodi with RonPaulRadio.com. I just got back from the spin room.
Our first week when we were reporting from the Iowa straw poll, we hit 400 listeners, which was incredible.
Ron Paul Radio has been put together by a man in Florida, and I'm working with him. I'm out of Omaha. What we're doing is airing shows that people produce themselves. This is all grassroots.
The other candidates didn't have a radio station for one simple reason. They're not that great.
We record speeches of Ron Paul. We bring up issues that he believes in, and just enjoying this great election cycle.
It was about, let's keep the people pumped up to get out there, vote, and get more people to know about it and have a good time doing it. That's what it was all about. You can go on the internet and read the forums, and you can go and read the news, but you don't have somebody telling you what's going on right in front of them.
Is this the first time in your long career as a congressman and a doctor that you've ever had a rock concert thrown in your honor?
I think I have to admit that is the case.
Well, you know, you done me wrong. Because I feel like I have joined you in an effort that is really worthwhile fighting. like we have a lot of work tomorrow. I hope I get a good night's sleep tonight. I'm not worried about you guys. You'll do fine. So we're trying to something new there.
This is something that came out today, a full-colored page ad that was bought and paid for by a group of individuals that originated on ronpaulforums.com.
The newspaper ad in Iowa before the straw poll. I mean, that was probably the first big project that the grassroots put together where everybody just contributed from all over.
The mosaic's made up of close to 3,000 individual faces of Ron Paul supporters. You know, a little bit of an argument back and forth how we're going to do it. Some people wanted to do like let's list every bullet point. Let's, you know, do everything like every other ad. And it's like, you know, if we're doing the backdrop of We the People, just put the preamble, cut it at that.
It came together very quickly. It came together in 36 hours. From the funding of the project and the designing of the ad and the placing of the ad and getting everything together. From the conception of the idea to the actual execution, implementation, everything.
And the really incredible thing is that a lot of people around the country have called the Ames paper to order a copy. And there was a report that they had over 2,000 copies ordered from individual supporters around the country by 10 a.m. this morning.
He had no idea what he was going to place in the straw poll, but he said as long as the numbers are there and we keep on getting enthusiasm, you know, we'll do all right.
I think all of us, including Dr. Paul himself, were blown away by the grassroots response.
I don't want to use the word out of control. It was unbelievable from then on. The kids would hear about the campaign on the internet and look at the videos and get their parents involved.
We have allowed our nation to be overtaxed and overregulated and overrun by bureaucrats. The founders would be ashamed of us for what we're putting up with.
I think the difference between Ron Paul and all the dime a dozen politicians, the difference is that he really is unique in that he says what he believes. He has principles.
The Constitution was written very precisely to restrain the power and force of government and to protect the liberties of each and every one of us.
This is of a piece of a sort of 230-year-old American tradition of, you know, rugged individualism and independence and reverence for liberty, and those things are not as alive as they once were in American society, obviously, but they still exist, and I think Ron Paul speaks for a lot of people who still uphold those ideas.
It's a very big deal out here in Ames. All eyes focused in the political world, and we wait, wondering who won the Ames straw poll.
Number 5, Ron Paul.
We're gaining every single day. I never thought we would get the support we did a few months ago that we're getting now, so we'll keep plugging along. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. Very good.
So, Congressman Paul, and I'd like you to take 30 seconds to answer this. You're basically saying that we should take our marching orders from Al-Qaeda. If they want us off the Arabian Peninsula, we should leave?
No! They were downright rude to him during the debates. Some of these anchor guys would marginalize him and disrespect him there in front of national television audiences, and it was shameful.
I'm saying we should take our marching orders from our Constitution. That's where I take my marching orders, not from any enemy.
Over this way.
If you look at it, there's really one candidate of all of us who is substantially different than the rest of us. That's Congressman Paul.
Congressman, we are one nation. We can't be divided. We have to be one nation under God. That means if we make a mistake, we make it as a single country, the United States of America, not the divided States of America.
When we make a mistake, it is the obligation of the people through their representatives to correct the mistake, not to continue the mistake.
And that's what we do on the floor of the Senate?
No, we've dug a hole for ourselves and we've dug a hole for our party. We're losing elections, and we're going down next year if we don't change it. And it has all to do with foreign policy, and we have to wake up to this fact.
Even if we lose elections, we should not lose our honor, and that is more important than the Republican Party.
We've lost over 5,000 Americans over there in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and plus the civilians killed. How many more do you want to lose? How long are you going to be there? How long? What do we have to pay to save face? That's all we're doing is saving face. It's time we came home.
Gentlemen, thank you. Wendell.
It really bothered me how unfair they were with him.
Clearly, Mike Huckabee was the winner and Ron Paul was the loser.
But then at the same time, it reminded me of that saying that Gandhi said, first they ignore you.
You say that you would eliminate the IRS, the CIA.
Then they laugh at you.
The Federal Reserve, the Department of Homeland Security.
Then they fight you.
You have proof of that. There's no proof.
There's absolutely proof of it. It's been chronicled.
And then you win.
First place with 35%, Ron Paul. Rudy Giuliani came in second.
Oh, here we go again.
Driving Hannity
it's
crazy.
Driving me
We're
crazy.
60.
I got very angry with you tonight.
Oh, my.
I know. We have some agreements.
First time?
On the,
Is that first time ever?
No, not the first time ever.
You should be nice to your guests.
It's a shame that the Republican Party pushed Ron away, mostly, and the reason why I think it's such a terrible thing is because the Republican Party could have had maybe doubled in size. If they would have just grasped this message and said, yep, you're welcome, come on into the party, the Republican Party would have been huge, but instead they shut it down.
Here I was in a Republican, convention, so to speak, a Republican group, and but I didn't walk away. I guess I was, confident enough that they were wrong.
The grassroots projects that I think I found most interesting and just really exciting towards the movement were things like Ron Paul graphs.
At the time, it had already started where you couldn't post anything on the internet without getting a vote Ron Paul, or Ron Paul is going to save the country comment under it. And after I'd seen 3 or 4 of those, I was like, who the hell is this Ron Paul guy? I noticed that he was publishing his donation statistics on the Ron Paul, the official website. I thought that was really compelling to have that up all the time. So I wrote a program to go to the website as though it were a human, get that number and record it into a database, and it just did that every 5 minutes. So I started out by just making a graph or 2, and I posted them, I think, on the Ron Paul forums. People seemed to like them, and it was interesting to me, so I kept going, and I was learning a few new techniques and technologies I didn't know before, so it was exciting to me. By the end of it, I think I had, 140 graphs by the time we were done. I was getting very little sleep for a few months. I was working for 8 hours or so at my day job, and then I would work all night, into the early morning hours, and then all the weekends, so, probably 40, 60 hours a week for 3 or 4 months running.
There's a very complex web of regulations about how you can raise money in the United States now. It's fair to say that our political campaigns are more heavily regulated than any time in history. In particular, they stomp on grassroots activity. It involves a lot of work nowadays because the largest contribution you can take from an individual is currently in a federal race, Congress, Senate, President, is $2,300. And realistically, to run a race for the United States House now, you need bare minimum probably $500,000 and really a fair amount more, and that's just necessary to communicate with voters. And to raise that in those little tiny contributions is a very tough deal.
Ron Paul's fundraising was actually done by volunteers who simply stepped up to the plate and said, all right, everybody out there on the internet, we are going to give money on this particular day.
James Sugra, who lives out of Huntington Beach, California, had created a video, and then he basically appealed and said, what if 100,000 of us donated $100 each on November 5th for a $10 million day? And of course that date was significant because of the pop culture, familiarity with the movie V for Vendetta, which was largely anti-state.
I'm a big fan of V for Vendetta, okay? And when the Remember the 5th of November came up, I went all out on that thing. I mean, we made banners for that thing and spread it around.
The irony of using November 5th as the day for the money bombs was just a stroke of genius.
It really became a big deal on the forum, and that's where my understanding that it really got heavily promoted. And there's all kinds of arguments about it should include V for Vendetta. No, it shouldn't. And then they changed it out, and there was rifts over that big time.
We needed to make a website so that people could come and pledge and promise to donate on that date. I took that task up. I went and bought thisnovember5th.com. People sent me graphics that I put up for the site, so I didn't have to make the graphics.
It started propagating virally from that point. People just, sending emails, sign up, sign up, sign up, sign up, and then before you knew it, there was like 40,000 people signed up.
The word of mouth was so strong and so viral that it definitely went offline too. People were just telling their friends, just go and donate on November 5th.
Tell me, do you know what day it is, Evie?
November the 4th.
Not anymore. Remember the 5th of November.
Ron Paul had a good day yesterday, a very good day.
Supporters dropped $4,380,000 in 24 hours.
And it's believed to be one of the biggest internet fundraising efforts by any candidate ever.
Oh, I know. It's been spontaneous. It wasn't driven by the campaign.
What do you mean? You never met the guy responsible for organizing more than $4 million in money for you?
I don't think I have met him, to tell you the truth.
I did get to speak to him like a little bit later when things died down for him, and he told me on the phone, he said, I've been on interviews for days straight, and he had never ever experienced that before. So we came together to do exactly what we wanted to.
I think it's so ironic, of course, that the only reason we got any kind of credibility is, oh, he raised a lot of money. Instead of like, he's got great ideas. He's a really honest man. His supporters raised the cash on November the 5th to commemorate Guy Fawkes. This guy was a British terrorist who tried to overthrow the government by blowing up Parliament and killing everybody in it.
Two important things can be thought of or represented by that date. One is, yes, Guy Fawkes, but the other is the movie V for Vendetta, which was a movie that touched on that historical date in order to create a new theme that was a reaction to the propaganda of the state, the police state, the spying, all these things that were going on.
I want everyone to remember why they need us.
And so it was no shock that they would try to focus on something that really wasn't the motivator for the day at all.
Were they contributing to your campaign, or was this all about Guy Fawkes Day?
Explain to me what those supporters who are drawn to you on that kind of anniversary are trying to say.
That's what they do. The media, I believe, intentionally, from the get-go, has marginalized his message, has tried to make it something that it isn't.
So that's what news has been reduced to, and it is very dishonest.
Is this the same kind of thing, or is this worse than what it was in the 60s with the radicals then?
Oh, I think it's much worse. Totally in bed with the Islamo-fascists and have turned against this country.
But it's out there, it goes, it's gone, it's believed, becomes part of the subconscious of the electorate and how they vote.
Well, if you go back to the forums today, you see that they're not giving up. There might be more to come. They're discussing dates for other fundraising drives. It looks like the weekend of December 16th, the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party, a webpage already dedicated to that weekend, promises it's coming soon.
I think that's part of the challenge of the movement in general. It's a lot of the ideas and concepts are rooted in history, and things that go back 200 years are no different than really that they are today. But inherently, people want to feel that today is way different than it ever was before.
Our supporters, of course, are a lot different than others. Others are doing it for superficial reasons, but people who would join our campaign did it because they were philosophic people and they believed in something and they were motivated. So I think it represents a huge movement.
You hear grassroots all the time with Ron Paul's campaign. And one thing I learned, it's not a word, it's not like change, it's just not something you just hear, it's something you see.
As a grassroots, we wanted to put on this huge, mega-sized rally with lots of everything. We wanted it to be big. I do believe that going into that part of the election season that we did have the largest rally held by any presidential candidate. About 4,000 to 5,000 people showed up for that.
Ron Paulers outnumbered and out-rallied all the other candidates' people combined. It was just, it blew me away, so I knew I was in the right camp. And we had fun, because if you're not having fun, you're so doing it wrong.
Ron Paul, you know, he kind of strikes us the grandfatherly neighbor next door, and he's not the guy you think is going to lead a charismatic movement, you know.
Everything about the whole campaign was so innovative and different from what you're accustomed to seeing, and I think everybody's bewildered in the whole political arena right now, going, how did this happen? And how come I can't make this happen to my campaign?
Yeah, they just drop everything and they'll do anything it takes to get the word out about this guy.
In my experience, I just saw too many people worrying about getting somebody else to do something and not enough people doing something themselves. And the next thing I knew, I was pedaling a bicycle across the country.
The wonderful bike ride of Michael Maresco, the Ron Paul rider, from the Santa Monica Pier to the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. in 65 days.
Well, it was a new experience for me. I had never been a cyclist before. I've never been a fitness buff in my life. I've never been to a gym. I've eaten a granola bar. I bought the cheapest card I could get. It's one of those you put two kids in and pedal them around the neighborhood or down to the corner store. I stuffed it full of signs for me to plant, DVDs and Slim Jims and anything any one of the meetups would give to me to hand out. And I would be handing out and leaving in convenience stores and just seeding the route I was on. People thought it was around 100 pounds altogether. It was a lot of weight. I planted a sign in every county I pedaled through.
Everybody's working hard for Ron Paul here, so we just got to keep bringing it across the country, bit by bit, mile by mile.
I got to ride with Ron Paul, which was really an honor. Right along with the focus of the journey for a few miles. So I was really honored. It was great to be able to ride with Ron Paul. The purpose gives one strength and courage. I pedaled 3,700 miles from the Santa Monica Pier in California and Los Angeles to the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was the idea that we can make a difference in this country, and that's more important than any personal hardship I might go through. People are going to be sorry. They're going to look back and say, oh, maybe I could have done more. That ain't going to cut it in this day and age. We need to do more.
Throughout this entire campaign, a lot of really amazing things happened. Do you know what I mean? Things that you never could have predicted and never would have expected.
While I was in some rinky-dink motel, I got a call from Larry, and he wanted to know if I was keeping an eye on the thread where they designed and produced the USA Today ad that he graciously paid for.
And so I called up USA Today. I said, what does it cost to run a full-page ad? And they said, it's about $70,000 to run a full-page black and white ad. And I said, okay, I can do that. We'll do that. I posted on the forums I wanted to run the ad.
He asked for everybody's input. He really made it a grassroots project. It was his money, but he put it all transparently out there.
We probably had 2,000 editors of this ad. I mean, we did this very strategically. It's a 4-day issue. They don't publish over Thanksgiving. It's going to sit around in airports. More people will see it. So we ran the ad in USA Today, and I was hoping for a big splash, and I figured, okay, some national media will call, and we'll get some interest, and this will be great. We'll really get somewhere with this. We ran the ad, nothing. And so that led to the second ad, which really is just a wall of words, which one could argue isn't very visually attractive at all. But we thought that the people would either decide to read it or not, and that the message inside is compelling. And I got a much bigger response to the second ad from people who said, you know, I was thinking about Ron Paul and I read your letter and I'm all in.
It was really an important thing to have somebody on his level speaking up for everybody else. That was a great part of the grassroots movement.
Congressman Paul, I've heard him now in many debates talking about bringing our troops home and about the war in Iraq and how it's failed. And I want to tell you that that kind of isolationism, sir, is what caused World War II.
Allow him his answer, please.
We allowed Hitler to come to power with that kind of attitude of isolationism and appeasement.
Okay.
And I want to tell you something, sir. I just finished having Thanksgiving with the troops, and their message to you is, let us win. Let us win.
Right.
That's what they want.
The presidential candidate that received more campaign contributions from active duty troops than all others put together, of course, is Ron Paul. And it really says a lot that the politically aware people in the military, those that are paying attention and engaged in the political process, are supporting someone who advocates an immediate withdrawal.
So what John is saying is just totally distorted. He doesn't even understand the difference between non-intervention and isolationism.
Ron Paul's non-interventionist view was, no, we shouldn't bomb these people, we shouldn't put sanctions on them, we should instead have free trade, cultural exchange, we should understand each other better. What in the world is isolationist about that? Trying to make this distinction with John McCain, seriously, I might as well try to explain the Copenhagen theory of quantum physics to him, so we'll leave him to his mistakes.
CNN and YouTube approached Ron Paul's campaign, asking him, as well as all the other Republican candidates, to submit a video.
And they would show on the TV 30-second grassroots-produced videos about the candidate.
It's an election like no other. An enemy lurks waiting to strike. We need the leader who gets the big stuff done.
Rudy Giuliani faced unheard-of challenges, yet Rudy prevailed.
Duncan Hunter. He built the border fence between California and Mexico.
I don't have to wake up every day wondering, what do I need to believe? I'm Mike Huckabee, and I approve this message.
The people are sick and tired of what they're getting, and they want some real changes. I don't want to run your life.
Well, Ron Paul was the only candidate out of all the Republicans who made the choice to actually have his supporters come up with a video.
Only Ron Paul's was actually followed the rules and was actually produced by grassroots people. No grassroots people could be bothered to produce a video for Rudy Giuliani or John McCain. I mean, nobody.
As soon as I saw Ron Paul's reaction coming out of it, I felt that it helped to inspire him a little bit in that moment in time, because he actually jumped right in immediately following that ad and made a comment that was very strong and very forceful.
This country is in a revolution. They're sick and tired of what they're getting, and I happen to be lucky enough to be part of it.
I'll take that as a no, okay.
And I would think that for someone who's up on that stage surrounded by alligators, it's good to have that, hey, there are lots and lots of people out there who are behind this message and really believe in what it stands for.
As Democrats and Republicans use their conventions to drum up support, a group of political activists is spreading its own message, one step at a time. Ben Croplin caught up with a dozen people in Dunn County today. They are walking from Green Bay to Minneapolis.
And Jerry, their message is relatively simple. They say the U.S. government and members of both political parties have shied away from the vision our founding fathers had.
We feel that the federal government is overstepping its bounds and treating the Constitution like a suggestion book and not like a legal contract.
And Jerry, the group will end its journey next week in the Twin Cities around the same time the Republican National Convention starts.
Someone asked me today, what I thought when we were leaving Green Bay and what I'm thinking now that, this trip is almost over. All of us just came in and meshed together and became one big happy family. It's been quite an experience. You wouldn't think that so many different people from so many diverse backgrounds could come together, but the message of freedom unites people.
It's been a good experience. I've loved walking with all these guys and just being in the same mindset and being able to talk with people who express the same views. It's been long and tiring for sure, plenty of blisters and sore feet.
Oh, well, I've got blisters on both feet and blisters on top of blisters, but I just kept on walking because I'm taking so many other people with me.
We are now headed to, what is it? Where are we headed?
Chippewa Falls?
Yeah, Chippewa Falls, yeah. And beyond.
Seeing the kids out there really affected a lot of people, a lot of the older people. There was one lady out, some farm lady, she came walking out, and so we were talking to her for a while, and after I explained to her what we were doing, and she looked out and she saw Brett, and she saw Cody, and she saw Rod.
She got teary-eyed when we told her what we were doing and how happy she was that the youth was standing up and fighting for the country. So that's something that I won't forget when I walk away from here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
They see this, they see these young kids, they see all the people it takes to do this, and they want to help. That I think is one of the good things, the very good things I've seen in Wisconsin.
Oh, we're in Hudson, Wisconsin, just right over the border from the Twin Cities. I'm not a real political person, but it's nice that that's what you hear people talking about, what they believe in and what the country's doing right and what the country could do better, and that it really does fall back on us.
Today was our last town hall meeting. We brought in a lot of people. I thought we were very effective, very receptive again.
You know, we went out with a bang tonight with the attendance and the enthusiasm and the discussion.
I really am impressed with the fact that it's a grassroots thing and that people are coming together as best they can to share the information, to teach people about something that they should know something about.
The people are starting to realize that their neighbors are a lot more like themselves than they think.
This has been so fun, this whole experience is being with everybody out here, and it's almost over. So in a way I'm excited, in a way I'm, you know, it's going too fast.
Tomorrow we're going to be walking over the bridge as soon as the sun comes up and make our way into Minneapolis.
So there's the bridge right there, about to cross it.
We were ready to go at 7:30 and we started walking. Then we get a phone call. Hold on, there's a drummer coming. So here comes Colin with his polyester jacket and his tricorn hat and his drum.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jim Azzola.
Jim Azzola, Colin Wilkinson.
Colin Wilkinson.
Mike Maresco.
Showing up with your
That definitely made my day. Definitely much more motivating to walk with a drummer.
And he led us across that bridge with that drum. And it just set the pace for the day. It was kind of thrilling to go over that bridge. It was like leaving one stage and entering another stage.
We just walked into Minnesota, had about maybe 6 miles worth of farmland, and then we started hitting the suburbs and the city.
I think the blimp has got to stand out in everybody's mind. I mean, that was just such an outrageous thing to do.
Thinking about the same problem that we were all thinking about, how do we get Ron Paul recognition? What's something that people can't ignore? And, you know, I just thought, it's just something big, you know, and just, okay, a blimp, you know, just something kind of crazy.
You know, you can ignore people on the ground holding signs. You can ignore people on the internet who debate passionately in forums. It's really hard to ignore a blimp.
After he saw the money bomb, a gentleman by the name of Elijah Woods, he was like, you know, I really like that idea about the blimp. What do you guys think? Should we do this? And it took up life of its own. People started talking about it. I did want to get involved because I own the domain ronpaulblimp.com. So that's when I asked Elijah, hey, do you want to work together?
Trevor Lyman came up with the idea, but I got it off the ground.
Elijah, I think, made the first contact. He persuaded us of the genuineness of the inquiry. Then he put us in touch with Trevor Lyman, who was famous for the money bombs, I think, which were great success. And so that began to add credibility to the whole inquiry. The Skyship 600 is quite special. It's the largest blimp in the world. It's about 200 feet long, about 70 feet high, 65 feet wide. And I think it's probably the only time that an airship was used to promote a presidential candidate, in fact, or any politician for that matter.
Which I thought was a great PR stunt. I thought that was a great way to advertise Paul and unique, and everybody was talking about it, Ron Paul supporters or not.
The FEC rules did provide us with some challenges with respect to the funding, and we were concerned about how that was going to work out.
Well, my involvement with the blimp was I was the attorney for a company called Liberty Political Advertising. We used a concept known as sort of timeshare advertising. It's done in television and so on from time to time, where people will buy a block of time, subsell it down to others.
And the idea was, if you want to sponsor, a minute of the message, a minute of this blimp flying, it will cost X amount of dollars. And then once your sponsorship's over, the next person's sponsorship begins.
It said, "Who is Ron Paul?" Google Ron Paul on one side, because of course we're an advertising company. We can't tell people to vote for him, but we can certainly tell them to look him up.
One event that really drove a big wedge in the forum was the blimp, because there were so many people that were on one side of the camp, fence, or the other side, and man, they had it out.
I'm not huge on the blimp, which is why I didn't bring it up as one of my favorite things. Okay. I was initially, but I just felt like, but I think it was just too much money spent on it.
Well, all in all, the blimp was $600,000 project.
Best spent, I don't know, but there's not going to be another presidential candidate probably that has its own blimp. So I mean, we at least have that one little piece of history that, we're the only guy ever who ran for president who had his own blimp.
From just a sensationalism and putting it on the media, on their radar, that I think that there's a certain amount of genius to it. It was stupid. It wasn't a stupid idea, it was a great idea. It really was. But the timing was wrong.
We have to look for a window of no snow, good weather.
It took off December 12th, and it flew till pretty much the end of January. It wasn't until I came along and started asking all these questions that I realized how ridiculous it was really going to be to try to have a blimp airborne during this time of year. But by then money was being collected, there was a website, lawyers, and it was like, okay, we're just going to do the best we can with what we have.
The Ron Paul blimp has been spotted over South Carolina.
I think for the Ron Paul campaign, it's thinking outside the box.
They're now going to fly this blimp up and down the eastern seaboard with the message, Google Ron Paul.
At the end of the day, we can say that we got, $2 million worth of advertising and publicity for the $500,000 to $600,000 investment.
We had a certain leisure to do something fun with the blimp, whereas, traditional campaigning, we send out brochures, we send out flyers, we have a bus. Traditional campaigns don't put blimps into the air.
I mean, you didn't see Obama or McCain having a blimp. That was unique to Ron Paul.
It's, again, an individual's way of being creative and calling attention to something they thought was important. And if all that had been directed by one single person in the central headquarters, say, well, you can't do that until you get some orders, get it approved, and that's where the bureaucracy sets in, and bureaucracy can set in government or even into an organization.
What really works is when people are passionate about their work, when they're passionate about the campaign, and they step up to the plate and do what they think is right without having to take instruction from the higher-ups.
We now are a nation known to start war. We feel compelled because of our insecurity that we have to go over and attack these countries to maintain our empire. We have over 700 bases, we're in 130 countries, and we're talking about bombing Iran. It is such a dramatic change from what is truly American and truly constitutional.
One of the great YouTubes and then television commercials that was then actually aired on TV is the so-called High Tide ad, which is an animated ad that excerpts from some Ron Paul speeches and events, and it really very dramatically gets across what his key issues are.
Spread the message! Thank
you! For the High Tide promo, somebody introduced the idea about making a video that would promote Ron Paul's message, kind of like a campaign video, but a little bit different style, something that's never been seen before, like a movie preview. It took about, I think, 3 months to finish almost. It turned out to be double the length of time than I thought.
They asked me if I could do some sort of symphonic thing, and I had sort of done that before. I got all sorts of weird softwares and stuff here, and then I just sort of put together some different instruments and came up with a sketch on piano. The name for the song is called Julian's Troubles, or Sorrows, I can't remember. But either or, they're both sort of depressing.
He ended up writing this whole symphonic piece for the whole thing, which was beautifully done. People that saw the video that didn't know who Ron Paul was said, this is an amazing message. Who's the guy in the video? And that's one thing we're trying to show also, is that it has a timeless feel to it, that even if it's 2 years from now or whatever, people still get the same message out of it, because the message of freedom is an everlasting message. It can never get old, and it can never die.
It is now December 16th, 2007. The money bomb for Congressman Ron Paul, organized by grassroots supporters to coincide with the 1773 Boston Tea Party, is now happening.
Everybody wanted to see that number go up. Ron Paul's numbers, $6 million in one day. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Revolution's in the air. The resistance is on. Take action right now, ladies and gentlemen. Call everybody you know.
We are blessed to have had Ron Paul stand for us all these long years. Now we are here today to stand for him.
And there were just parties held everywhere. Just, hey, let's get together this time. Meetup, basically probably inspired by the meetup groups, which were just flourishing all over the nation.
Steve here. I'm with the Ron Paul headquarters in New York, and it's going crazy here. We got a couple hundred people, and Ron Paul's about to reach his goal of $12 million.
When we blew past, you could see the crowds going crazy as soon as we passed 12, and it was really probably a reaction that happened across the Ron Paul community. The old thermometer came down, and then a few minutes later, a new one came up with a higher goal, and the 12 million was passed, and it was just awesome.
So what do you think, man?
That was awesome.
Success? Success?
Absolutely. 5.5 million so far.
Man. You set the record. In the history of American politics, nobody has ever raised more money on a single day than you.
Gosh.
And yet, this is happening without your campaign people coordinating it. This is completely about grassroots, and it's completely about you just saying what you believe in.
Tea Party money bomb, so, geez, it was kind of a no-brainer that we should do something big in Boston. Faneuil Hall is known as the cradle of liberty, so it was just the perfect spot to have this Boston Tea Party event. We needed a permit to rally on the State House steps. We needed another permit to march down the Freedom Trail. The Granny Warriors needed a permit for their Winnebago. They also needed a permit for the monkey. Ultimately, we got no permits, and freedom prevailed.
Ron Paul, for him to go against the opposition that he's going against, for people to, laugh at him, boo his ideas, and the fact that he still keeps doing what he's doing, no matter what his ideas are, I mean, that takes guts, and you recognize people with guts. See, integrity, you don't see that in anybody else. You don't see that in Giuliani. You don't see that with the Democrats.
If it weren't for him, I know there's so many people who wouldn't even be interested in the presidential race.
So this is a revolution without bullets being fired right now.
There is quite a few people in Europe that follow what Ron Paul is doing and support him, and it's not, we are not all socialists in Europe.
One of the really appealing things about Ron Paul is that he understands the importance of history. He understands the importance of seeing where you're coming from and of not having the presumption in one generation to toss away the accumulated wisdom of ages.
Today, as we gather here in Faneuil Hall, we are going to set a record for fundraising. We are sending a message to the world that we won't be ignored. The establishment in their high-rise penthouse views laughs at you. They laugh at us, the Ron Paul rabble. But you know what? They're not laughing today.
We reignited the torch of liberty. This is where it all began, in Boston. I think we accomplished something great. We really did.
And we had the biggest one-day fundraiser in the history of online fundraising for political candidates ever.
And ultimately, we raised over $30 million altogether, I believe, for his campaign.
I started the Ron Paul Air Corps right about the time when the blimp couldn't make it to the Boston Tea Party. Put together a chip-in button, like a lot of people do. We received some money that way and some through the radio, and a lot of it just came out of my own pocket. We made 5 banners in total, flown them in the locations where all the primaries were occurring across the United States. Just to give a little more coverage, the media would pick that up and play it on the news, and it would just remind people to get out and vote.
There was a lot of interest building up to the first primaries in Iowa and New Hampshire, and there was so much interest online that nobody really knew how he was going to perform in the primaries.
We worked on New Hampshire 4 or 5 months ahead of time. I knew people up there, all the meetup groups, we were all concentrated. There wasn't anywhere you could go that somebody didn't have a Ron Paul sign up.
We're about to go where no man has gone before. We don't do it because it's easy. We do it because it's hard. One small step for man, one giant leap for Ron Paul.
New Hampshire was just a blast. We put up so many signs in freezing cold weather. We were spray painting signs at 2 in the morning. The spray paint cans were freezing, so you'd have to take them inside after they had cooled down too much.
It's just so cold out here. My hands are too numb to even know they're cold.
You know, we'd have the stuff inside, bring it outside, spray it real quick, go around. We had a circle. And we just kept, you know, hundreds of signs that we did.
The primary hasn't happened yet. Nothing has been decided. The final push is underway to win the people of New Hampshire over.
Some reporters would ask me in the run-up to the presidential primary, whose hide were Ron Paul votes coming out of, and my usual answer was, you know, no, Ron Paul's people are Ron Paul people.
I guess I did some sales on a highway once when it was shut down, but I've never done anything like this in a snowstorm. Figured we'd give everyone some reading material out here. Came all the way across the country just to spread the love of Ron Paul. What better opportunity than a car crash? So, well, we might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Ron Paul, he's trying to save the country, believes in this, what's it called? Constitution? That's what they call it, yeah. A lot of politicians aren't sure what that is, but...
Most successful, all successful campaigns in New Hampshire, especially in the presidential primary, have grassroots support. There are campaigns that try and do what I'd call Potemkin village campaigns. It looks like there's grassroots support, but you look underneath it and it's all astroturf. There's nothing, there are no roots. Those ones get exposed and fail every time.
Please welcome Ron Paul. Now, I got to ask you, this seemed really unfair to me. You were excluded from the debate last night, and I'm trying to figure out why Fox News chose not to put you on. What do you
know, we tried to find that out.
The debate, which was scheduled for I think it was the Sunday night before the primary, there was a desire to limit the field a little bit to candidates who are just going to be competitive in New Hampshire, and that meant cutting out some candidates.
One of the 5 men sitting at this table tonight will be the Republican presidential nominee.
It seems like you should be kicking somebody's ass right now.
We don't let the media or anyone else pick who's a real legitimate candidate and a serious top-tier candidate and who is not. The voters make those decisions. And so we withdrew our sponsorship.
After Fox was trying to ice him out, we started producing signs. Ignore the media that ignores the truth.
But whatever, you know, sometimes the other team is gonna, they'll score a few points on you. It's okay. You know, it's all part of winning and losing.
A lot of people put a ton into the campaign, and when they could see someone else just wipe out so much of the work because of their position in the media, they didn't like that. They didn't appreciate it. And so, I mean, what power did they have besides to throw snowballs at people?
When they were throwing snowballs at Hannity, it didn't look like anybody was getting hurt.
Rather than run away from them and call in security, I walk right out amongst them, right in front of them, right past them.
You suck, Sean!
Yeah, that was classic.
It looked like some people were having fun or releasing stress. He probably halfway deserved it.
Yeah, he didn't look like he was having fun.
They're absolute lunatics. But we stood right up to them, walked right past them.
What a guy.
Everybody wants to throw snowballs at Sean Hannity. Whether you should do it or not is a different question.
The truth of the matter is we do enjoy the circus, and the fact that it was a very competitive primary on both sides of the ballot only made it a better show.
But everyone had a lot of hope. I know I had a lot of hope. that he was really going to break through and come in first or second.
Your generation, the young people of this country, have awakened, and this is just going to be the beginning of something very, very big for this country.
I thought Ron Paul would probably be in the mix for that and could finish as high as third in New Hampshire. He finished a couple of thousand votes out of that. And with a lot of support both in-state and with out-of-state people coming to New Hampshire to try and promote the message.
I was totally surprised by how the results went, but I mean, what can you do at this point besides not agree with it? I mean, I don't know. I don't trust the voting machines.
Congressman Paul, yet another question about electability. Do you have any, sir? There's always the question as to whether or not you are in fact viable. Your differences with the Republicans.
Fox News' intent and purpose was to discredit Ron Paul because he represented what the Republican Party used to be, but better yet, what conservatism used to be.
So you're suggesting that I'm not electable and the Republicans don't want me because I'm a strict fiscal conservative? Because I believe in civil liberties? Why should we not be defending civil liberties? And why should we not be talking about foreign policy that used to be the part of the Republican Party? Let me see if I get this right. We need to borrow $10 billion from China, and then we give it to Musharraf, who's a military dictator who overthrew an elected government, and then we go to war, we lose all these lives promoting democracy in Iraq. I mean, what's going on here?
There's never been a more conservative person to run for president of the United States than Ron Paul, and he's an embarrassment to them because they're a liberal piece of trash neoconservative party that cares about war and war alone.
I think Congressman Paul should not be reading as many of Ahmadinejad's press releases, but let's
I do think you should value people who speak from the heart and who tell the truth. And you should also value people who honor the vision of your founders and respect the most sublime constitution devised by human intelligence.
After Super Tuesday, which was in February, a lot of enthusiasm just got drained away.
Super Tuesday is almost completely in the books.
The polls get ready to close for Republicans.
Here we are. New Jersey, Republican primary, John McCain, we project the winner.
In New York, also John McCain.
Illinois, we project John McCain the winner there as well.
The Georgia Republicans, Mike Huckabee.
In Connecticut, we also project John McCain.
California is his.
McCain is garnering enough GOP support.
McCain with a large sweep of victories around the country.
You feel it in your heart. You know the guy is right. You want him to win. And the numbers don't show. You see the support. What do you do? I mean, of course you're going to get discouraged.
I was beat because like I said, I was getting very little sleep and spending a lot of my life on this.
I just can't put the type of effort into something that, to me, is relatively futile.
But I don't think it didn't stop the movement because, Ron Paul was a messenger. He wasn't the movement. He was a man.
Though victory in the conventional political sense is not available in the presidential race, we must remember elections are short-term efforts. Revolutions are long-term projects.
I was disappointed when that letter went up on the website. I didn't want it to end.
I wanted Ron Paul to stay the course. It's not for me to say. I mean, who would want to be in a mess like that? Who would want to campaign the way that he had to campaign for as many months? It's a thankless task.
I cried really hard that night. And I got drunk, actually. I was disappointed.
I'm very sad that Ron Paul dropped out when he did. I'm hurt.
Ron Paul can't do it by himself. And I've had a lot of people that were very disappointed when he decided to back out of the presidential race. And I said, what do you think? He's going to wave his magical presidential wand and all the stuff is going to disappear? No, that's not the way government works.
You know, the idea that we were under some illusion that he could get elected, or a fantasy that they were going to allow him to be president, was not even it. We understood. He was the vehicle by which we could express our dissent. Give a finger to the man all the way up to the end, as far as we could take this.
But there's another thing that I think we ought to do. We ought to make a grand display. We ought to have a true march to show what our numbers are.
Ron Paul came out with his video, you know, telling people that he wanted to have a march.
Dr. Paul, all he had to do was say, hey, I think there should be a revolution march. Boom.
As soon as I saw it, I went, I got to be a part of this, you know, because I've done things in D.C. before, so I can help.
And they took it upon themselves to organize it. And they did it themselves, without the campaign, without Ron Paul. They just did it.
My theory has always been that if you ever can bring about revolutionary changes, two things would be required. The young people would have to be involved, you'd have to have music.
That was like the thrill of a lifetime to be playing in front of the Capitol building with all those protesters. It felt like something out of the 60s or something that I'd only seen, you know, previously.
The revolution is worldwide! It's always been worldwide!
Would you listen to a poet or a prophet? Journal all this world's injustice or try and stop it. Can you feel the coming change? No hell is here today. Hope is on its way.
95, 100 degrees. It was unbelievably muggy and hot and miserable. But these people showed up, and the D.C. police told us that at the height of the march, there had to be 15,000 people there.
As Iraq veterans against the war, we are resisting an occupation we once risked our lives for. We swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, but we found out the hard way that the greatest enemies of the Constitution are not to be found in the sands of some far-off land, but rather right here at home.
We didn't have anything go wrong, had no fights, no problems, everything just went wonderful.
No more central planners, no more bailouts and billions for the bankers.
We're surrounded by the John McCains, the Bob Doles, Hillary Clintons, Barack Obamas, Chuck Schumers, all these interchangeable nobodies and liars and thieves and killers.
Even though people were upset about the government, upset about some of the things that are happening, it was so happy.
After the Revolution March, people started talking about the Rally for the Republic, and it was like the next big thing, and everybody was really excited about it. And I started getting all these emails like, hey, I'll see you in Minnesota, really looking forward to hearing you again.
When I saw the Walk for Freedom heading into St. Paul, I was so excited. I just thought that was so cool. I mean, I literally got a little misty because here are folks, they were taking this message and they're literally walking with the message.
St. Paul happens to be the evil twin this year.
The GOP convention was getting ready. Everything was kind of blocked off, so that's what made it such a ghost town.
And then you have the military standing on the roof of the building with their binoculars.
You have the national police state in evidence at the Republican convention and at the Democratic convention. I mean, it's just with all of this security and this elevation of these people into some sort of American royalty.
What I understand is they spent $50 million on security. They built a cage around this building. They had riot cops, you know, they had their big billy clubs and their tie wraps for handcuffing people, and they just looked intimidating as hell.
You know, the Republican Party has all the money. They could spend tens of millions of dollars on their crummy convention. We got these huge billboards, you know, with Ron Paul quotations up on them, greeting the delegates as they get there. And I thought, man, that is such a gutsy, in-your-face thing. Things that are in your face, we are here, man. You know, we are not going away.
Ron Paul came on into the university area and met with us, and he was wearing a shirt that we had all signed as far as all the walkers. So he has our autographs now.
He led us for 2 miles through the streets, proving that you can lead the country at 73 years old.
It was just a joy to be able to walk with him, walk behind him, around him. He led us over to the Fed building, and we were just chanting and cheering the whole time.
We have just finished off leading a protest march to the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank, where Ron Paul gave a wonderful speech in front of this wonderful palace dedicated to fake money.
Certainly was an act of defiance to go ahead and choose an arena just on the opposite side of town from where the national convention is going on.
Even after the guy is not in the race anymore. I mean, again, who is doing this for any other candidate? Who would do it even if being paid to do it?
All we have to do right now is just walk, keep plodding ahead, and that's what the Walk for Freedom was doing, and I was so proud of them.
You know, I'd done things like that before, but the guys that hadn't done something before have something in their heart now that'll give them more power in the revolution. So completing a journey like this is it's almost a spiritual journey.
Man, it's a joy to be here, finally.
And this is real. This is where it's at. This is where this is where we take our country back.
We just arrived for the big event, for the Rally for the Republic. We're ready to go. Everybody's pumped. Everybody's excited. The walk just ended today. It's an amazing feeling to be out here.
Ideas spread. They can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
It was the culmination of everything that his whole campaign stood for.
In a stadium like that, and to see all these people interested in something that I thought I was a loner, you know, almost in the ideas, and I'm sure Ron Paul felt the same way at one time.
In the past 18 months, it was discovered that the ideas of liberty and the revolution was alive and well, and we're celebrating it here tonight.
If I was going to say something to the grassroots, it would be thanks for the experience. I've learned so much in the last year and a half. I knew nothing 2 years ago compared to what I know now.
I have no doubt that what was sparked by Ron Paul is not finished. It's not consummated. It's ongoing.
And so Ron Paul can hold his head up high. You know, he made an impact. We're still talking about it now. And there'll be better things to follow in the future.
So once again, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the trust that you have placed in me, but more so the trust that you have placed in the concept of our God-given rights to our life and our liberty. Thank you very much.
I almost feel as if he's saying, you know what, if people want what I'm offering, they'll make it happen. And I think that's why the grassroots just simply hasn't given up on him.
We want an America full of principled people. Not people who say one thing and do something else. Say anything to get elected, but who say what they mean what they say, and they live their lives by those principles. And that's why he can animate the grassroots.
So long term, it's changing people's hearts and minds, and that's where we've made the progress. But really what has happened is we have awakened a lot of people to look into our philosophy.
Don't give up. Don't retreat into cynicism. Even if we don't win, life is about fighting for something greater than yourself. It's a good thing to fight for what's right, and it's enjoyable to fight for what's right, and it's immensely satisfying to fight for what's right.
Let it not be said that we did nothing.
I gave her tapes to get a load of this. We were standing out front of the Opolis. Atlantic City side one, state trooper side two. If you're up for a party, I might follow you. We started dancing in the living room.
Adam Kochecki. Is that how you say his name? Thanks, let's say it again. Coquette? Let's get it down so I can say it correctly.
I was show up early, I was all worked up. I take the guitar out the back of my truck. We'd stumble through songs we wrote that night. My buddies come up and say we sounded alright.
People bringing that message to people, and those people wanting to bring that.
There were so many ingenuitive. Is it even a word? Ingenuitive? Is it a Bushism? Did I say something?
And the documentaries that are going to come out of this, you know how many thousands, tens of thousands of hours of videotape there is for the revolution? Nobody's going to be able to, encapsulate it in, 1 hour. They're not going to be able to do that. You can just kind of get the sense, the idea.
So you're off to wander a new land, where the rivers wind through the villages, by the reaching trees and the talking birds, smoke exotic leaves with adventurers. And as the wind it goes, so must you. If you've got to run, whoa, safe travels. There's a world to see, so they tell me. Maybe time you leave this old city, that the seasons change, they always do. I'll be waiting here to talk with you. And as the river runs, so much true. If you've got to run, whoa, safe travels. Oh, safe travels. Oh, safe travels.